So welcome to a session on Stackdriver. I'm Aja Hammerly, and I like it when people tweet at me during my talks. My Twitter is _Thagamizer, which is spelled exactly as you think it is. And if you come up afterward, I can tell you the story behind that. Today, we're going to talk about Stackdriver. So let's get a little bit of show of hands first, figure out who all is in the audience today. So who's used Stackdriver before? OK, awesome. Who's using it in production right now? Smaller set, not surprising. And who in the audience has a DevOps, sysadmin, IT ops type of title? OK, smaller group than I was expected. How many people who just think of themselves as developers here? Awesome. OK. So I work at Google as a developer advocate. But before I worked at Google, I worked in IT ops, DevOps, whatever you want to call it. The title seems to change every week. And one of my jobs was racking servers. This is not actually a picture of one of the servers I racked, but many of mine looked like this. I also carried a pager for about 3 years. I was half of our on-call team. Who here has done the pager thing? Yeah. Not necessarily everyone's favorite task. And I did a lot of production issue debugging, including connecting my trusty dev laptop to production. And I know I'm not the only one who's done that, even though it's a bad idea. So why am I talking about Stackdriver? One of the things I really like about Stackdriver is that all the tools come together. Everything is there. Everything is integrated. When I was doing this work before Google, I was using one tool for log aggregation, another tool for crash reporting, another tool for application performance monitoring, and then a pile of tools for monitoring, Pingdom, Monit, all of the above, Nagios. And whenever something went really wrong, everything would turn red. And it was really hard to figure out what was actually going on because everything was alerting simultaneously. It was also annoying when someone would join or leave the team because I had to grant them accounts on all of those systems or take their accounts away when they left. And Stackdriver does all of those things. It has a lot of that functionality already built in, and it's all integrated. And so that's one of the reasons that I'm super excited about Stackdriver. But I could get up here and give you the marketing pitch for an hour, and we would all get bored, including me. So instead, we're going to live debug a website using the Stackdriver tool chain while I'm standing here. So I made a simple Rails website running on App Engine Flex, which we announced is now GA as of this morning. Yes, it supports Ruby. This is my website, cat or not, also known as tinned_per. And you can upload your cat, you can vote on the cats, and you can see all the cats. And I'll give you a quick demo of this. So here's all of the cats that people have uploaded to tinned_per. As you can see, I have some performance issues I baked into this, so we have stuff to look at later. But this is what happens when you send an email to the entire team saying, show me your cats. You know, there's some pretty cute ones you can look at. And if you wanted to upload a cat, you could do that. Standard basic upload form. And for voting on cats, using the material design UI. Oh, Chuck Norris and Rambo, the picture didn't load. Let's try a different one. Wow. So I could vote. There they are. So that's all there is to this website. So here's the basic architecture. Running it on App Engine, as I said, which means I don't care how many servers I have running. App Engine takes care of it. I wanted some sort of back-end processing, because I don't know any real websites that don't have some sort of back-end processing. So there's a pub sub queue set up behind this. And when someone uploads a cat, it calculates which cats still need more votes and populates the queue. And then when you go to vote for cats, it pulls from that queue. A little contrived, but you know, demo apps. And then I'm using Cloud SQL, running MySQL as my backend. So, also interesting, I'm doing a talk to a bunch of DevOps sysadmin people, or people who like to break things, I hope. And if I'm doing that talk, it's really boring if there's no load on my website. So I spun up Apache Bench, and it is currently hitting a bunch of URLs from my website, just doing GET requests, relatively simple. But it's better than no load. And that's running in the background. I'm running it on a Compute Engine instance. So let's say I'm taking tinned_per to production. I need some monitoring. And the first thing I need is uptime monitoring. One of my general rules of thumb with monitoring is I don't want to monitor anything that if it goes wrong, I can't fix it. So Sometimes it's nice to know things, but if there's no direct action you can take, why do you want to be woken up? So let's set up an uptime check. Actually, I've got an uptime check set up. This is going to be a very demo-heavy talk. So I'm just using the standard uptime check in Stackdriver for App Engine. We're going to look at it. And earlier today, the Virginia site was failing, but now it's back up. I can see exactly where things are going on. I can also see a track of my response codes. This may correlate to when I started up Apache Bench. And you can also see my response latency and what's going on. And this all comes for free. I just logged into Stackdriver for the first time. They're like, you have an App Engine app? I'm like, yes, I do. And this is the standard uptime check that comes with App Engine. So that's the basic stuff done. But I also want to check my database and make sure that that's being monitored. So let's set up some monitors on that. Cloud SQL. So I can see I had a spike of queries here, and I haven't had any queries recently. And that's a little suspect. So I'm going to set up a new policy for that. Select metric rated change on Cloud SQL. Applies to all of them. And if my read ops decreases by 15% over 15 minutes, that seems like something's probably not right. Oh, I can only go up to 8. And I'm going to be notified. And I'll be notified as thangomizer@google.com. So now I've set up a basic policy on my database. If I'm not getting enough read ops, I'm assuming that load has gone down for some reason, likely something's wrong. The other kind of thing I like to check when I'm doing App Engine is I like to set up a policy on the response codes. I showed the graph earlier where I show I have a lot of 500 response codes there. That's a little suspect. I probably should have gotten alerted to that. So I'll make a new policy for that as well. And it's applying to my cat or not, which was the other name for my app. If 500 responses are above, we'll go with 30 for a minute. 30. Yeah. I want to be notified. You saw the blue line show up that shows where that is, so I would have been notified earlier today if that had happened. And this time I'll have it notify me with the console app. Name it. And now I've got 2 basic alerts set up. But that's not all Stackdriver can do. One of the many things it can also do is error reporting. And this is one of the things I really like, because if you've set up Stackdriver logging, it pulls in your logs and it analyzes them and finds clusters of errors and lets you know when things have errored out. And it doesn't show you the same error 10,000 times. It groups them. You dive in. You can see a simple trace of that. And it happens to be that my phone just alerted. So let's dig into it. That may have been planned. So if I go to error reporting, let's see if the latest error is here. This is the one I was looking at. This is the one that the console app, I have the Google Cloud Console app on my phone. And so I'm getting an undefined method pick for fixnum32. And that seems ungood. And I got the whole stack trace here, a bunch of stuff in Rails. How many Rubyists Rails developers do I have in the audience? I assume relatively few. More than I expected. Yay, Ruby. And so some things I can do when I get here. I can link to the issue. If I had a bug tracker, I can just put the URL in here. I can look at the raw stack trace, which may be more useful in some languages. I can see that it yielded a 500 message and that the first one was seen 56 minutes ago, and it was seen in this particular App Engine version. And I can actually make it happen because I know how it happens. Oh, it didn't happen that time. But we'll dig into it. So now I know that I have this error, and I want to actually look at it in the logs and in my source. We'll switch over to the logs. So I'm just looking at Stackdriver logging for my Ruby app. If you're using any of our App Engine or client libraries, it will automatically show up. To get all this stuff working with Ruby, I just installed the Stackdriver gem. I didn't have to actually do any configuration at all. It's just straight drop-in. And a lot of the libraries for web frameworks work that way. Look at this, and I can also filter by log level. That's the Cloud SQL database, App Engine. I want error or above. And I want my Ruby app log. So here's all my errors, and I can see them here as well. This links to error reporting. There's the error again. I can mute an error. And so at this point, I have a pretty good idea of where this piece of code that's failing is. So this is the point where I would normally jump into debug. Stackdriver has a built-in debugger, but it is currently pre-alpha for Rails, and I went to go try it out this morning, and it's not quite working, so we're going to actually dive straight into my editor instead. So, welcome to Emacs. So I happened to write this is broken. And the issue I have here is that I'm pulling all the votes from a pub sub queue. And I'm not actually refreshing that pub sub queue except when people upload new cats. So if the queue empties, I end up pulling null. And then I try to do a bunch of stuff with null. And that doesn't work so well. So what I need to do is, if there is no next cat equals cats, cat.all.sample, which in Ruby just pulls me a single random one from the whole entire list of cats. So now I've done that, I'm going to deploy to App Engine live, because live demos are awesome. And that's going to take a little bit, but I need to hit yes first. So we're going to go back to the slides. Here we go. So I've talked about some parts of the Stackdriver suite. I've talked a little bit about monitoring. I showed you a little about logging. Logging can also export to BigQuery. I really like BigQuery. I frequently give talks on BigQuery because it's amazingly powerful, and I don't have to learn a special query language to use it. So if you have a lot of logs and you're like, this interface isn't working for me to dig in the regular Stackdriver logging interface, you can just export to BigQuery and use SQL or JavaScript to search your logs. Talked a little bit about Debugger. One of the awesome things about Debugger is that you can debug live on production. And it isn't like your normal stepping debugger, but it still allows you to debug live on production without connecting your dev box to production, which is good in my world. But the big thing I haven't mentioned about Stackdriver is that it's cross-cloud. Most of the features I've showed you work just as well on AWS as they do on GCP. I've showed them on GCP. It's GCP next. But you can also do all the monitoring, all the logging, all the error reporting on AWS as well. Or if you're one of those people who's working in a cross-cloud environment, which lots and lots of people are now, you can have all of your information from both places in one place. You can set up the exact same alerts for AWS and GCP. At Google I/O last year, I had a database where my master was running in GCP, and I had the replica running in AWS, and I had all the same alerts on both of them. And the idea was that it was a hot swappable setup. So if one of my two providers went down, I could switch and not lose as much and not have as much downtime. So, other nice thing about monitoring is we have monitoring that's set up for a lot of the common open source tools. This list is not exhaustive, but I've used it with Mongo, I've used it with Memcache, I've used it with MySQL, Nginx, Redis, RabbitMQ. And often if you have these and you have the agent running, it will look at the name of the instance and the ports that are open, and will make available to you in the UI the metrics that you are most likely to want, because it has a pretty good idea what you're running. If you're running MySQL, you have port 3306, I believe, running, and it's named my MySQL instance, it's pretty sure that you're running MySQL. And if it's wrong, you can tell it it's wrong, but that's really handy, and it saves time when you're setting stuff up. Also, we have metrics for a lot of our tool set, not surprisingly. I showed you some of the stuff for App Engine. You can look at reserved cores, CPU usage, that kind of thing. We have our DOS protection. You can see if that's been triggered. For compute, CPU utilization, uptime, read and write. BigQuery. Who here has a really good idea how to monitor a giant data warehouse? I didn't. And there's stuff we've built for BigQuery with the BigQuery team that makes sense. So uploaded bytes, scan bytes, how many queries you have going on. I did a blog post 2 weeks ago about different ways that you can monitor BigQuery using Stackdriver. Firebase, super popular, awesome set of tools. You can monitor that as well. And the Stackdriver team and the Kubernetes and container engine team are working together to build monitoring for container-based systems, which is something that not a lot of folks have figured out exactly how to do yet. If you want to know more about all the metrics we have available, the URL's here. This talk will be recorded and online. Yesterday's talks showed up before midnight last night, so 48 hours or less, hopefully. And alerting. So you saw me choose that I could get emailed. I got alerted by the app on my phone. I could also get an SMS to my phone. I've worked at places that use PagerDuty. We connect with PagerDuty. You can use Slack. You can use HipChat. You can use Campfire. That covers a lot of the stuff that people use for managing their teams and figuring out what's going on in places that they're looking for their notifications. So we talked about error reporting. There's lots of great features here, and one of the other things I like is that you can configure alerts, and the alerts automatically know when to stop telling you about the same thing happening over and over again. Not only does it group it, if you get over a certain number of alerts in an hour, it shuts up, because it figures you know at that point, and you're dealing with it. You just haven't been able to make everything go quiet yet. Debugger. I have played with Debugger. It's currently available for Java, Go, Node is beta, and Python. And it's not your normal stepping debugger. You upload your code or you point the debugger at a cloud repo or a GitHub repo. You figure out the line of code you want it to look at. You set a watch point, and it will catch an in-flight request, snapshot at that point, give you all the variable values, give you the stack trace, and then it'll let the request finish. So then you have all the details about what was going on. So if you have that situation where you're like, OK, the stack trace says it's on that line. How the heck is it getting to that line? Why does it have a null value at that line? I don't understand. You can set that watch point. You don't have to push an instrumented version of the code. You can just do it live. And depending on exactly the runtime you're running in, it adds some latency, but not a heck of a lot. Some of the languages are better at handling that than others. Language runtimes, they're all different. So I was going to demo Debugger. I'll show you what it looks like at least, so you can see approximately what it would look like. So I'm going to... Oh, you're doing things. Wouldn't be a live demo if everything didn't go exactly the way I wanted. So I have my cat or not folder, and here's all my code. And the controllers. Here's the votes controller I was looking at earlier. There's the code that I've changed already. And you can see that it does not currently support the Ruby one-time. I actually have the debugger library, the gem, installed, but I'm not hitting a staging version of our app because they won't let me at this conference, so I can't actually show you live. But it's coming. It's pre-alpha. It should be alpha soon. But you can see how you can just set a breakpoint in the side here and get all the data of the app while it's running live. And you can see your snapshot history. You can also look at your logs. So the only thing I haven't showed you yet is trace. And I've done a lot of work with a lot of different tools that are trying to keep track of my performance of my application while I'm working on it. And this one's pretty awesome. So I can look at a specific trace for a specific request that was slow. Came back. There we go. And you can see that it took 312 milliseconds. It's not particularly long, but longer than I'd like. Most of that was done in this new method, which is what I'd expect. Here was the SQL portion where it was reading active record, doing the query. Here's the stuff where it was doing the rendering. And you can also look at the details, the timestamp, the trace time, the untraced time, what status code it returned, and a whole bunch of other interesting things, like size of the response that had happened. I can also look at analysis reports. So here's the auto analysis for my root. And this is a latency over time, 25%. So you can see the different graphs and see the latency in milliseconds for the root of the application at various times, the 95% case, and how it was doing week over week. I believe this is what this is. Cumulative distribution, seeing different ways of visualizing the same data. So one of the things you may have noticed is that my show all the cats page does not have any sort of pagination at all. And it is doing a pretty intensive query because it is actually showing you the cats in order by most popular cat, and it's doing the averaging of all of their votes in the database. And so here is all of the requests and the analysis for all of my requests to /cats. You can see that this one was particularly long. I can click on it. I can get the information about that. Most of the time was spent not in SQL. It actually looks like it was waiting on the server. But I can also look at other requests that took a long time, showing render time versus waiting time. That was likely one of the ones that was caught up while Apache Bench was running. And I get all this summary information. I can also limit that URL by HTTP method, by the status code. See if we had any 500s. No 500s today. And also which parts of the service. I've only got one App Engine service, and which versions of App Engine I'm using, if I have multiple versions. So let's see if my deployment has completed. It has. So let's actually do it this way. And it's now spinning up the, you can see the load on my App Engine as it comes up. Come on, you can do it. Wouldn't be a live demo if it didn't go sideways. So you've seen how all the pieces fit together while this is loading. I'll demo in just a second when it loads that the voting works again. You've also seen that you maybe didn't see, but I told you, and it really is true, that all I did to get all this instrumentation was quite literally include gem Stackdriver in my manifest, my gem file. Same thing works with Node. And if the tools aren't available yet for any of the other 7 languages that we support, they're on their way. We're working on them right now. And I love that I don't have to configure anything. I don't have to install an agent. I don't have to get a set of keys for some third-party service and make sure that the right keys are on the production server and that the devs don't have them so that the dev data isn't polluting my production data. Everyone's accounts, everyone's access is controlled in one central place with IAM, and it's all there. All the basic tool sets that I need are there. And as someone who's had to debug stuff for ages upon ages upon ages before, yay, my cats came up. Oh, and the current winning cat is the animated GIF cat. So everything's there. Everything's there, and I don't have to do a bunch of extra work for it. So let's see if we can vote on cats now that I've fixed my bug. Oh, and it even showed me my cat. That's Emma. Emma an 8. We'll see if it crashes. And the bug is fixed. I didn't run out of queue length. It's randomized now. So I want to thank the team who helped me with this talk. The app and stuff is mine, but I got some help from the Stackdriver team, and specifically the Stackdriver Ruby team, because I told them a month ago, hey, I'm going to demo all your stuff on stage. You should probably get it done. And they had all the libraries done for me this morning, including the debugged library, and it was my fault that it didn't get fully included. There's a bunch of resources available if you want to learn how to use this stuff. Here are a bunch of links, cloud.google.com/product name, Stackdriver, monitoring, logging, debugger, error reporting with an underscore, trace.